So welcome everyone to today's session, and you're welcome regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, identity, orientation, ability or disability, all are welcome in our space. So I would just like to commend you all to have positive intentions, make space for others, listen, also participate to the extent that makes you feel comfortable enough, whether it be by chat, by asking questions, raising your hand. Also, always keep in mind to be accessible and describe visuals as much as you can. And as we mentioned, we ask for your permission if you could record. And if anyone feels uncomfortable, you can be anonymous, turn your camera off or your mic off at all times. During breakout rooms, you always have a quiet room. So if anyone didn't feel like participating in any activity, and always message us privately if there's anything bothering you, if there's an issue, whether it may be me, Yasser, or Irene, or even the hosts. And thank you. So Robin and Tanya, take it away. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Noreen. Could I just mention that in your chat, there's only the option to message everyone. So I don't know if you want to change the setting on that. So if somebody does want to reach out to you, they can. Right. So it's wonderful to see you here, the people who've joined us so far. Perhaps another couple of faces will be joining us. Yes. Hello to Riza. So the known faces, very nice. And Meg, I recall you joining us last year. Also wonderful to see you. So we're going to kick off because we have a lot that we'd like to cover. I'm sure this is the situation that most people have when they're running a session. So I'm going to be sharing my screen for a moment. And I'd just like to welcome you to the session. The title is, as you know, Crossing the Divide. And this is where we're looking at how do we use imagination, focus, and flow when designing sessions for whether it's an educational purpose or any other one is not really relevant. The image we've taken for this is a hand. You can see a part of someone's hand, and they're holding some glasses. And the background is blurred except for looking through the lens. And when you look through the lens of the glasses, you're looking into the woods. So it's again just an indicator that there's many lenses that we can use and we will be using hopefully today. So to move on, oh, wait a minute, sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. A quick word to ourselves as hosts. My name is Tanja. I work a lot with the corporate world, but also very much with many nonprofits and enjoy the work immensely. And I've been doing this for about 30 years. I only present topics that I personally find super interesting and exciting and adaptable. And just as a side note, hobbies of mine are hiking, mountaineering, climbing, and reading. Yes, lots of reading. So I'm going to hand over to Robin.
Hi, everyone. Good to see everybody here. My name's Robin. I currently live in Berlin and I'm finishing my degree in educational studies. And apart from university, I help school leavers to find their career path and help them to apply for jobs. And also a few years ago, I lived a year in Ecuador and was a music teacher, a drum teacher for kids. And also, I enjoy dancing and playing the drums.
So yes, he's a very busy person, Robin. But just to be quite honest, he is my son, and we work together, and we've worked together for three years or more. But this is our first really official session where we are 50-50 co-hosts, and he's not just supporting me. So that's lovely to have him here on this call. Maybe that's why I'm smiling so much. Good. Moving on, let's just briefly look at our agenda today. So we're going to have a short input session on the neuroscience 2, and I haven't written it out here because the slides will explain everything in just a moment. And it's basically saying the default mode network, the task positive network, and flow. and how they connect. And then we're going to have a guided visualization, reflect on it. Then it's going to be you experience the visualization. We're going to go to the experimenting with what we're working on today, a reflection session, and then we're going to close out. So if we move on, we're just going to begin with breakout rooms. And Robin, would you mind setting them up, please, in pairs?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, no, it's the other way around. Robin's doing this part. Excuse me, I'm quiet.
No worries, all good. To start the session off, we're gonna do a short icebreaker, and we are going to give you the opportunity to get to know each other for only 2 minutes. And there's going to be a few breakout rooms in pairs, and each participant has 1 minute time. And the question we're going to give you on your way is going to be, what's one thing you hope to learn or take from this workshop?
So I'm just setting up the timing of it. 2, and then we're going to do a 30-second countdown when your time is up, just in case you got a little carried away. But I'm going to open the rooms now, just have a short exchange, and then see you back into 2 minutes.
About flow. I think flow is such an exciting and energetic concept. I can't wait to think about it with everyone. But Ali and I had a little moment where we said, let's re-engineer time by reworking our relationship with the phone.
Marvelous, marvelous. So we're just going to move on now. As I said, we've got quite a lot planned for you all. And we're going to kick it off actually by looking at what we are calling the wild side and the place of purpose. So the wild side is actually one of those abbreviations you saw before, and it's the default mode network of the brain. Now, if you imagine you have 2 networks, and normally they're anti-oppositional, which means one is active and the other one is then deactivated, and then vice versa. And they have different roles. Now, there are many neurodivergent people, so I can't speak to everyone, but standardly, this is what happens with these 2 networks. You're either here or you're there, and that's at all times. So the picture we're using here on the screen, there is a hanging bridge, which is crossing, you're looking the length of the bridge, and it disappears into a wild forest on the other side of a river. Underneath the bridge, there is a river flowing. So the default mode network sounds so boring. I always describe it as the wild side. And let's have a look and see what the role of it is. So this is where ideas begin to emerge, begin to stir. So you can say that this is where imagination and reflection live. And it activates things like daydreaming, storytelling, memory, and meaning making. So it's not when you're thinking in details and actions, but it's when your thinking is broader and it's more open. And as you notice, it's called the default mode network because that is your default setting. That means that when you get up and walk around, your mind is automatically in the default mode network, unless you're doing specifics, which is when it switches. So imagination, reflection, this is very much where this takes place. It generates insights and possibilities and connections and what the future could bring and what my gut is telling me, the metaphors I think of. So it's all of this open, free, wide, liberated thinking. And it's not, because I just said specifics, so if you are thinking of it as this is not focus, that's not right. It's not the opposite of focus. It's just a different type of focus. And the default mode network prepares the ground for the purposeful work, for the specific work that needs to happen. So you don't see it as a distraction, it's a source of inspiration. One of the things about the default mode network, which I haven't put on the slide, is this all sounds very uplifting and energizing, but it's also the place where people can get lost, where they can just disappear in their thoughts, potentially get lost in the deep, dark woods and not find their way out. So it's not just a positive place, it's the place of all imagination, whether it's negative or positive. Because this is going to be a guided session, we're focusing on it as a very inspirational source. And in your work, that's what I'm assuming that you're also will be doing, providing guidance of some description of how to use it purposefully. So, but just so you know, it's also the place where people get lost in very dark thoughts and find it very difficult to find their way back. So, as I said before, it's anti-oppositional, which means it's either one or the other. So I've just used a seesaw here as an example. So that means that one end is up while the other is down, and vice versa. So if I'm in the wild side, and again, this is the picture of a hanging bridge moving into a forest, the question is, how long is that productive for me? And when do I recognize this is no longer the place I need to be? I need to cross this river that we're using as a metaphor and go onto the other riverbank, which we're calling the place of purpose. So when you have the feeling that dreaming becomes unrelated, visioning is not taking you any further, nothing new is coming up, or you may even feel anxiety or overwhelm or boredom, these are all indicators that you need to be crossing the river to something that is more specific and that your brain now needs another type of focus and input. So on the picture, it shows the wild side is at the bottom end of the seesaw, and there's an arrow pointing to the place of purpose with the items I just mentioned. And that's what it's trying to illustrate, is simply that it's too much of the wild side now and it's time to move on. I'm sure you all know the expression analysis paralysis. This is the wild side. So if you work with imagination, one of the messages that is critical is imagination alone is not going to provide an output. It's only in the combination of both that you'll have some form of output. So moving on, now we're looking, there's a different type of bridge. I don't know, does anyone know how to describe that bridge? It's a sort of, in my mind, it's a sort of Japanese looking bridge, which is like a half arch, red, and it's moving into a very manicured, landscaped garden setting. In comparison to these wild forests we just had in front of us when crossing the swinging bridge, this looks now very curated. And this is what we're calling the place of purpose. And this is the task positive network. So we just did the default mode network. Now we're looking at task positive. So what is it there for? And this is where purpose takes shape. And we mean literally. It's very goal oriented. It's action driven. And it's when you're planning, focusing, solving, analyzing, doing. So very clear focus, very specific. It clarifies, provides structure, and it helps you move forward with what is my next step? What are my next 5 steps, for instance? The default mode network is not about moving forward. It's all about possibilities. So the task positive network, or the place of purpose, as we're saying for this, they bring form to what the wild side has created or surfaced. And it organizes the thoughts and the actions that need to follow from that. And it's not better than imagination or better than the wild side. It is dependent on the wild side. That is creating the possibilities and the place of purpose captures them in actions. Now we're looking at the seesaw again, and I'm going to explain when you can recognize it's time to cross back into the wild side. So at the seesaw, the place of purpose is at the bottom of the seesaw. The wild side is now the higher point because that's where we want to be moving back to. And this is when you've lost the joy of what you're doing in the place of purpose. Perhaps it's becoming stale or dry, or you don't know what a next step might be. When you're at that moment where you think, well, I don't know anything else, that is an indicator to leave this place of purpose and go back to the wild side, because then you need to open up your thinking and the possibilities, and potentially there'll be more clarity that you can then capture later. People often get frustrated when they're stuck here. You know, the pictures in my own mind, honestly, are of children sitting in front of this endless homework, the 5 A5 pages, A4 pages of maths that they're supposed to be practicing, and their brains just had enough. It needs a break. So all that frustration that gets there, and there's no vision, there's no connection with why you're doing it any longer. It's just an exercise in itself, if that's all it contains. So moving on to flow. Now, why is flow here? Does anyone want to say, why do you think we also have the topic of flow together with the two networks that we're focusing on? And you want to take a guess?
I'll just throw out that I think it's inherently about dynamism and energies, but I'm more interested in hearing what you have to say about it than me guessing.
No, you're really on the right track, Mia, absolutely. So as I've already indicated, you only spend so long on one of these riverbanks and can be productive. So flow is when you literally can move from one to the other seamlessly, that you have a design that does that, you have the intuition that allows you to do that when you're running a session. If I give an example, if I'm running a workshop, for instance, and I feel that's enough, they've had enough of this is time to move on, I don't care what's on my agenda. I'm not going to keep you somewhere that I realize is now unproductive, and I'll adapt accordingly with something that I feel like, okay, we need to be doing something that opens up your thinking, or we need to do something that's going to be very focused and specific for you for a moment. Yeah. So this is this flow. So I just gave you an example from a workshop, but I'd actually like to hand it over to oh, sorry, there's another explanation. I haven't explained what we mean. Sorry. Okay, so when we talk about flow, I'm talking about the concepts developed by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I always find his name impossible to say. It's a Czech name, and he developed this concept in the 70s. It was about states of deep focus, enjoyment, and engagement. So just reading those three words, you can see he's already referring to both of these networks: deep focus, enjoyment, engagement. It occurs when the skills match the level of challenge, and it shows it helps support intrinsic motivation and the ideal learning conditions for people. For educators, it's helpful because it really does provide guidance to the design of tasks that can promote mastery and autonomy, and not simply a task for the sake of it. So this critical thinking, engaging with the topic at a different level than simply being instructed to do something, doing it, and it's done. Yeah, so you're engaging at a different level. Okay, we're going to go through that again because it's also important. Okay, right, there we go. So flow, and now to relate this back to our default mode network, the wild side, and the task positive network, our place of purpose, flow is in the ability to cross between the two. to recognize when do we need to be moving. You can do it in a design, but as I said myself, you also need to be aware, situationally aware, what needs to be happening now here in the room with the people who are here with me. So flow doesn't reside in one bank only, it resides in both. And then you allow a rhythm to develop. So opening something, focusing on something, returning back to something. And neither side can sustain flow on their own. So the wild side offers meaning, place of purpose offers structure, and flow is in both of them. So now I would like to turn to Robin, I'm pretty certain. And I gave an example of a workshop. I can also say, just from my own experience, and I think there's at least one other person on this call who can say that too, that when you're climbing and you reach a flow state, it is so effortless. There's no thinking, there's no planning, there's no, oh, I'm going to make this move and do this and whatever. It just happens. Everything is so natural. But to hand it over to you, Robin, is there anything that you'd like to say about flow?
Yeah, so the first thing that pops to mind is I break dance since many years already, and me and my crew, we used to have lots of performances, and we trained these choreographies for many hours, and they were quite complicated also. But there was a time when everything just flowed, and it seemed like time would get a bit slower, although we were dancing really fast. And yeah, that I need to think of that. And then also sometimes, I don't know if there's any musicians in the call here, but if you play with a band together, you have a few moments where everything just fits and nobody's too fast or too slow. And I think I would also say that's flow for me personally. Now, question to the participants, to the group. When have you experienced flow in a non-work environment? Please drop your thoughts into the chat.
Doing a puzzle yesterday and being in flow. Wow. Wow. Not frustrated. Coloring, that's a lovely thought. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Pace. Okay, yes, riding a bike, creating something, dancing, writing me, I saw you also had, yeah. Not always, often when I'm doing things with my horses, my background as horses says yes to that one, Anna. Listening to music is, yeah, absolutely. Good. So moving on, the picture I've taken for this, oh, sorry, I didn't describe the picture before. The picture is of my son in his long-haired days, actually breakdancing. So, and he's jumping into the air, and I don't know if you can see it on the picture, but his hands are not actually touching his legs. Everything is incredibly light, and the way he's jumping, it's very high off the ground. But again, it's just in one of these moments when everything is perfect and moving correctly. And there was a photographer there at that point, and they took some pictures, and this is one of the pictures. I love this picture. It's just so light. So the next picture that we're using is actually of a crew of firefighters. And you can see there, they're trying to sort out the hoses. There's clearly a building on fire in front of them. There's smoke coming from the building, and it's a crew of 6 people, all moving, but they all appear to know what their role and job is. So the question now is, what's an example of flow in your work environment? We just spoke about non-work environment. So I'm assuming David whipping up and down the green hills is not part of your work environment. So what might that be? Flow in your work environment. Community, that's a lovely answer, Yasa. Collaborative writing. Developing a course, sometimes, when it works really well, right? That's it, that's what we hope for. So designing a new lesson, collaborative designing, enriching conversations, absolutely, biology labs. Most of the time when I'm facilitating. Sharing new dance moves, Irene, I see. You and Robin share something clearly here. Okay, so thank you very much for your answers. And there's going to be lots of opportunities for you to exchange with each other and be very active. But we're just now going to move into the guided visualization. This means that Robin will be speaking to you. My request is that you, well, my request is entirely up to you, but I will be switching my video off, my camera. I will be switching my audio off, and I offer you the same opportunity, and you can close your eyes, rest your head in your hands, do whatever you will, however you feel most comfortable for this exploration. On the screen, you'll see a picture of the side of a riverbank with beautiful trees on this side, and in the distance, there's a very green riverbank opposite, and perhaps you can even see under the word guided, there is a slight rainbow coming through. And that's the picture. So I'm about to turn my camera off. Robin will be turning his camera off, but he will be the only one with his audio on. Enjoy, and let's see what you have to say when you return. Say when you return.
Okay, enjoy. If you feel comfortable, gently close your eyes. You are standing beside a quiet river. The water flows with a steady presence, neither hurried nor still. Across the river lies something untamed, the wild side. You don't see it all, but hints emerge, textures that shift, shadows that hold light, paths that don't promise direction. It waits without expectation, but it is listening. You carry a question with you. It may be unfinished, it may be large or small. It rests somewhere in you, as breath, weight, or energy. You don't need to define it, only to bring it with you. And now you begin to cross. Not in any one way. Perhaps you drift, or the river parts, or you step on stones that appear only as you move. Maybe your body becomes air, or memory, or sound. Let yourself find your own way across. As your feet meet the far bank, the wild side unfolds. Not all at once. First as a shift in temperature, a quality of light. The colors feel softened, not because they are dim, but because they do not demand. The air carries a stillness that feels ancient. Shapes form slowly. The ground beneath you is uneven, but soft. Maybe it gives in just a little beneath your steps. There are forms here, tree-like, place-like, but they resist definition. Nothing sharpens until you're ready to see it. The landscape doesn't speak, but it responds. The question you carry seems to ripple outward, gently disturbing the quiet. You begin to sense something, not an answer, but a reflection, a pull towards something that notices you back. As you explore, open your senses. What do you feel on your skin? What sounds are close, and what ones remain out of reach? Are there colors or movements that draw you forward or ask you to pause? Does something meet your gaze? You may find yourself near a shape, space, or a presence. You may touch something, texture, surface, edge. You don't need to understand it. Just notice how it responds to your nearness. Nothing here insists, but something here sees you. And in that quiet noticing, your question changes shape. Maybe it becomes softer, maybe it stretches. Maybe it shows you something you didn't know you was part of. Stay for a while. Let the wild side show you what it offers. Not to explain, but to accompany. Let something settle in you. A symbol, a thread, a feeling. Let it rest where it wants to rest. You begin to notice the path beneath your feet again. Something in you knows it's time to return. Not to leave this place behind, but to carry something of it with you. Each step brings a quiet shift. The air feels different now. Less still, but no less present. The river appears ahead once more, its rhythm unchanged. As you approach, you see others gathering slowly at the bank. Some arrive with images still forming, some with new clarity, and others simply with the presence of having walked. There are no explanations needed, only the shared understanding that something has stirred. You return to the edge, not to the end of the journey, but to prepare for what comes next. And for now, you wait together, ready to cross again.
Okay, so if you'd like to join us just for a moment, before we move into the second visualization, would anyone like to share anything at this point? Please. Thank you, Mia. Feel free also to unmute if you'd just like to share a couple of words before we move into the second visualization.
I'll share something out loud. Just I loved when we crossed the other side, there was recognition or a sense of waiting for you. That was meaningful to me to be received.
Okay, that good. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you. That's that was the intent. Well, that was the intention, but it's how you experience it, of course, and everyone is different. Would anyone else like to share anything? If not, there we go. Thank you, guided visualize. Always lovely. Closing our eyes also helps. Like a living metaphor. Wonderful. Thank you, Yasa. Can you slow down the pace of the second visualization? No problem. Okay. So, Robin, would you like to do the second one or shall I? What's your preference?
You can go.
Thanks. Okay, so again, if you would just simply like to switch your cameras off, switch your audios off. If you feel comfortable doing so, cover your
You're muted?
Sorry, thank you for pointing that out. I was following my own instructions here. So you have arrived at the riverbank. You look to the left and you look to the right and you see this is where we are all gathered. Some people may be carrying something. Some people may have the aura of carrying something. As you look across, back to the riverbank you came from, back to the place of purpose, your journey across the water becomes clear again. Is it a boat coming to collect you, to bring you across? Are the stepping stones there to help you find your way and reach the other bank safely? Do you become air once more and drift across the river? You take this journey slowly, peacefully, carrying what you brought with you from the wild side. Once you reach the river bank, you can feel the ground beneath your feet again. As you look up, you can see a beautiful, landscaped, structured environment ahead of you. There's a gentle hill and a pathway leading you up it. Step by step, you ascend the hill and you walk to one of the many benches scattered about this clear open space. Perhaps it's one under a tree. Perhaps it's one directly in the sunlight to warm your skin and warm your thoughts. Or perhaps it's one at a small pond with water lilies resting on the water surface. Once you've reached your bench, you take place and you pick up what is waiting for you there. Is it a paintbrush or a pen, a pencil, some form of capturing something, perhaps as an audio, perhaps as a song? But what is it that you brought with you from the wild side that demands to be captured now? What is this one step, this one action, this one sentence that you wish to hold on to that will help you move forward with your question that you brought with you? Once you have it, you lay everything again back onto the bench and you lean back against the backrest and slowly you open your eyes, and by doing so you return here to our gathering, to our place here. You take a deep breath to once again be present, and when you're ready you put your video back on if you wish, and you join us once again here. So welcome back. What we're going to do now is move into a reflection session, and we're going to put you into breakout rooms. You have 10 minutes to, there are some prompts on the screen. It's entirely up to you whether you wish to use the prompts. If there's something else that you would like to discuss in your groups, that's perfectly fine. It's in your hands what you would like to do. So I'm going to try and do this slightly differently and include the co-hosts and then remove them if need be, because we have... Okay, I think that actually works. So let me just put the time in and the 30-second countdown. Welcome back. Lovely to have you back here. I've just shared the screen again and I'm handing over to Robin.
Would somebody maybe like to share something from their conversation they just had?
Feel free to unmute if you wish. It would be lovely to hear your voices.
So Noreen and I were getting to know each other. It was very nice talking to her. We started off, you know, with general discussions, and then towards the end, we discussed how, generally speaking, when it comes to guided visualization, how the impact of pace and tone of voice and a lot of things, actually, even the texture of the voice itself, all of this has an impact on how we visualize things and how we see things as well. Sometimes if the pace is too fast, it's like, wait, hold on. I'm still on at that stage. I still didn't move on to the next image. But then when the pace is too slow, how that has an impact as well. So like the balance of things also impacts how we visualize the images. And it's a really nice exercise in general. So thank you for that, Tanja and Robin.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the feedback, Alia. That was very interesting to hear. I love how you captured all the elements of how it will completely change the experience. Yeah. Any other thoughts anyone would like to share?
I had a great conversation with Anna in my room, and I'm sorry I did not pay attention. I did not make it across the river. I decided to go across in a raft, and the river took me downstream, and it was a nice, lazy, it wasn't Huckleberry Finn kind of raft, giant wood. It was one of those like pool floats.
Okay.
So
With
I
the
could
drink
just,
holder on the side.
yeah. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the river just took me downstream. Hopefully not toward a waterfall. I didn't get that far.
Well, you're still with us, so the universe was looking after you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move along and take a look at what comes next. And this is now, you may recall vaguely from the beginning, I did mention that on the agenda that there's the experience to experiment point, and we've reached that point. So there's a picture on my screen right now of a gentleman in a white shirt. You can only see a lower arm and his second hand as well. And he's looking at his watch and about to click the stopwatch on it. So we're moving now into the different options that you have. We're going to offer you 2 options for an extended breakout of 25 minutes. So Robin's going to just present option 1 and also describe the picture that we're using for option 1.
Breakout option 1 is called The Many Gateways, and we've just experienced 2 visualized visualizations. Sorry about that. And now we're going to explore ways of how we can jump between the 2 sides, the wild side and the side of purpose, and with in non-visual ways. And this is what we are going to practice in the breakout room. So the goal is experiment entering these states using non-visual approaches. And the question we're going to give you for that breakout room is, how might you activate the wild side, our imaginative mode, without meditative or closed eye activities? And also for the exercise, please keep in mind this is experiential and not only a conversation. So let's try to keep the flow going.
Would you like to describe the picture, Robin, before I move to the next slide?
Yeah, the picture, if I see correctly, is it's 4 to 5 old school arches.
Almost like stone gateways. Yes, it also gives the impression of an older place, does it not?
Yeah, it reminds me of a monastery. I have to think of a monastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as we said, or Robin just mentioned, breakout 1 is about the many gateways. So there's more instructions coming right now.
Discuss alternative non-visual entry points. As an example, movement, for instance. Take turns in experimenting with these. And after each, pause to reflect and ask yourself a question like, what did this open up? Or did something possibly shift for me? And two
Sorry,
options.
Robin, just to interrupt you. I should have said at the beginning, we're going to share a link to a small set of slides with all of the instructions on them. You'll have them in just a moment in the chat. Okay, so you don't need to make notes of these. You're literally going to have these slides. I apologize. I should have said it before Robin started. And
No
sorry
worries.
now.
And then we still added 2 optional prompts, which would be what conditions help you daydream productively? In brackets, sound, space, rhythm, slowness. What sensory ritual movement or tactile task could be a threshold to the wild side?
So for this option, we focus solely on the wild side, based on the assumption that that is where you're going to, first of all, attempt to open up people's thinking or to guide them into a place that is conducive to a different type of thinking. Now, option 2, as I said, we're going to share the link in a moment. Robin, if you wouldn't mind just copying the link for the participant slides.
Yep.
Okay, so option 2 is all about flow. And this is the flow lab, so crossing and returning. Now, the image that we're using here is just water, which is flowing over an uneven surface on a slight incline. So it looks like it's trickling down a river a little bit. And the task of this one, this one is a group experiment of switching between the wild side and the place of purpose. And this means you'll be crossing multiple times. So the question is, how could a group approach multiple crossings to achieve a more flow-like state? And does that mean we use a defined guide who actually is the person who makes all decisions at what time is right to cross? Or is it even possible to take turns and that the group itself defines, someone within the group defines when the time to cross is? So again, this is an experiment. This is not a just conversation. The whole point is that you want to be trying to access the wild side and the place of purpose. In this one, in the other exercise, it's how to get you into the wild side without using a visualization. So further instructions here: agree with your group what the experiment will actually be. How do you want to structure it? Make sure that everyone in your group has an opportunity to try something out. And again, after each little experiment, just reflect on, what did this open up or shift for me? And optional prompts, when you're on either of the riverbanks, please use anything you like. We just wanted to give you a little information for guidance in case you need it. And it's the wild side, what's unformed but present. Another one for the wild side could be, what could this be if there's no right or wrong? And the place of purpose, what might be useful or doable, and what one action needs capturing. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Robin, would you like to share the participant slides just on the screen for a second? if you access that Google document, you have viewing rights to these slides.
Okay, I shared the link for the slides in the chat box, and now you want me to share them on the screen, yeah?
Share the screen for a moment and we can look together.
Okay.
Okay, screen's opening. Slowly. There it is. Okay, so Robin, if you click down to slide 4, there are the instructions for the many gateways. That's the one page, and then the second slide that we used for that one, if you could just click on, Robin.
The second one.
No, sorry, number 5. I meant the second slide for option 1. There we go. And there's the instructions and the optional prompts. Beneath that, you have then option 2 and the instructions and prompts. And you'll see there's a further slide, slide 8. This is simply going to be the reflection that we do later. So you have the instructions for the room when you go into your reflections. Okay, so does anyone have any difficulties opening the document? If you could stop sharing for a second, Robin. Thank you. As no one is saying anything, I'm going to assume that's a yes. Otherwise, please indicate on the screen, because then we can just make sure that you're in with somebody who has access to the slides. So we've created, or Yasso has very kindly for us created 2 breakout rooms. They're 25 minutes long, and you have the choice of going to option 1 or to option 2 to continue the exploration that is most relevant to you and most interesting to you. So if you just take a moment to decide where you would like to go, option 1 or option 2, you have the slides just to check again.
Going to open them in a second, so you can have that choice. There is also an option for a quiet room if you don't wish to speak in a group, or if you wish to work on your own.
Thank you, Yasser. Okay, so the breakout rooms are open. Okay, so welcome back again, just for the recording. What we'd actually planned to do now, and I'm going to leave the decision up to you how we do it, is have a reflection on the breakout. So we can either go back into your breakout rooms. Let me share the screen, and this slide is on the participant slide. So it's the final one, it's slide 8. So the questions that you'd be looking at is which part of the experiment felt most natural? Oh, let me just open that up. There, that's bigger. Sorry. I was just on a different screen. So which part of the experiment felt most natural? Which part felt unfamiliar or challenging? How could you potentially use this if you decided in your own setting? And what about it would you keep? What would you need to change? Do you see potential in the type of work that you do? And what type of formats could you imagine? Only on one-to-ones, in group formats, but how big would the group be? Very short formats or extended formats? So those are the questions. And my question to you now is, would you like to go back into the breakouts and really explore this? What could this literally look like? Or shall we just do that exploration here? What's your preference?
I think we can do it together here. But of course, it depends on the majority's preference.
Okay, but thank you for voicing your thoughts, Alia. That's very helpful when someone kicks off. Hannah, we have a here as well. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Alia.
Great. Okay, thank you, Shaina, agreeing with Alia. So let's I'd like to hear what the other group. Yes, great, wonderful. Yes, we had some interesting topics come up in the other group and a couple of resources, which were very interesting. So let me just share the screen again. These are only prompts. You do not need to answer these. I leave it in your hands. If there's something else that you'd like to address, feel free to do so. Would anyone like to kick off? So we're looking again at I'm sharing my screen with the reflection questions.
So my group and I, we basically sort of reflected in general about a lot of things, to be honest. I think we went beyond the activity itself in a way, but it was lovely having the conversation together and reflecting together in all cases. We, I mean, some of the interesting takeaways that came out of the breakout room was the fact that the use of senses helps us a lot in visualizing things. For me, the sense of smell and taste, for Shahinaz, walking, feeling your feet on the ground. For David, he actually starts his online classes with dancing, which I found to be very interesting, and he shared with us an interesting video as well to illustrate this further. And then we went on to reflect on how experimenting with different things when it comes to the educational context as well could help also shape the learning atmosphere for our students. I mean, how many of us have heard of teachers or professors or whatnot starting off their sessions with dancing, for instance, especially if it's an online context? And then we went on, and this kind of reminded me of the Ikigai model, which I can share with you all in the chat right now. And we went on to say that and elaborate on the importance of balance. Living life with no limits at all would not be as helpful as having some sort of direction or sense of purpose. So the Ikigai model kind of reflects how, as we go through the journey of life, we should keep also in mind our reason for being, and to have a balance between doing what we love, what the world needs, what we can be paid for, what we're good at. So hand in hand, having passion, profession, vocation, and mission can help us or direct the path as to where we're heading, where we're walking towards, the wild side or what other side, you name it. And of course, my group members, feel free to add if there's anything else you'd like to share.
I'm just going to jump in there and ask you to attend every session I do, so we have such excellent summarizing skills at the end of it. That was amazing, Elia.
Thank you.
But David or Shahnaz, would you like to add something to that?
Well, I'll connect, Tanya, to one of the things that you said, which we find to be absolutely true, is it takes a practiced practitioner, a facilitator, to guide the process, because it is not one easily navigated. And so we teach a lot of creative problem solving activities and courses, because every discipline needs problem solving. And we've learned in our research supports, the facilitator is key to the success. If not, there's chaos in the room, and the facilitator understands, right, the tools that are available, but understands the dynamics in the room and what the overall.
Oh, you just muted yourself, David, by accident. There we go.
Sorry. Yeah.
Dynamics in the room we still got. Understands the
Okay. Yeah, that you need a trained, really a trained facilitator.
So, and when you
to
say
guide it.
facilitator, that in my eyes is definitely the teacher in educational context, or actually a facilitator within a working context. So there's many contexts that can be seen here. If maybe Shahnaz, would you like to mention that last topic we were just talking about? Or I can summarize it also if you'd prefer. It's up to you.
Yeah, please summarize it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because Shahnaz brought up a fascinating, dynamic, that when you consider what we're talking about here, it's the wild side and the place of purpose. Now you have a group of people together, working together, and there's friction and tension. And some are getting frustrated or they're getting overwhelmed. And what's happening is people are often on different riverbanks. You'll have people there, action-oriented people wanting to know, what do we do? When do we do it? How do we do it? There'll be people on the wild side trying to get some sort of understanding of where are we even going? How can we define something before we haven't even discussed where we're going with this? And this is exactly the same situation with exercises as well. When you give a group an exercise, people can approach it differently. And that's why it's so critical to be clear in your instructions. Step 1, step 2, step 3, because then they're on a mutual journey. They're not on their individual journeys, which may not align. So this is one of the greatest problems that I see when I'm working with teams. And it's quite interesting. You come in as the facilitator and everyone's like, they can't work together and there's so much friction between them, but you're guiding them. You know, you have them by the hand and you're leading them through, and then they're always on the same riverbank. So maybe for some people it might be too long or too short on one of the sides, but at the end of the day, they're there together and they're not dispersed. So that was, and thank you, Shahnaz, for mentioning that, because that's just such a relevant point. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So over to the other team. What do you think? What was your experience? And
yeah, we struggled a little bit with the context of what you were just talking about as a facilitator, of getting the whole group on one side or the whole group on the other. And we caught up a little bit on, so how do you do that? And how do we, and what does that flow look like? Because it's different for different people. Some might easily get there if I'm walking or in the shower, but you can't tell your whole class, go take a shower, think about this, come back, So, that getting there, and then how do we get back to what the purpose side of it is? And then, so we talked about maybe, playing some music, but then what happens during the music, and then we struggle a little because context in higher education, you're dealing with 19, 20-year-olds that don't necessarily know how to just sit and not be engaged with something else. So then it turned into, well, I guess before you could do this, you'd have to kind of explain this whole process of flow, and then anyway, but yeah, we did a little bit of back and forth with that. We did try out like playing music and then coming back and talking, and we found we all got sucked into the lyrics. So then we decided that you'd have to be more intentional in the music. So anyway, so I don't know that that's a summary because we were all over the place and that was just all over the place, but it's definitely a little bit of a wrap up of what we did.
Thank you, Jenny. No, that sounds very interesting, and I absolutely feel the challenge, because it is a challenge. But from what you've said, it sounded like you really came to some very clear conclusions. You need to have a structure of some description. If you're using music, without lyrics is better. It's got to work for you. We were talking also, of course, because David presented his approach of getting everyone to dance and listen to music at the beginning of the session, so that automatically came up. But the others who are in your group, is there anything you'd like to add, Anna or Teresa?
So I think I'll add this idea of like when you are facilitating a group or leading a group, essentially, even if you are on the wild side, there's a purpose to being on the wild side. So there's a marriage to the two when you are leading a group. It's not like the wild side just comes up well, maybe it does come up spontaneously for people, but because there's always going to be a little bit of the purpose in the wild side, because there's some sort of container for it. The other thing that we talked about is that some people's wild side some people might feel like they are lost in the wild side, where other people will not feel like they're lost, which goes back to what you were saying about directions and clarity and all of that. So.
And that makes total sense, Teresa, because when you think about the different types of people you're working with and their different strengths, some people are excellent when they're detail oriented, right? And they have incredible concentration. If they know what they're supposed to be doing, they can just focus on it. Now, if you take them to the wild side and abandon them there and take away all that structure that they might potentially need to be able to work, then it's not going to be a nice place to be. Yeah, and I'm sure that they feel lost, and I'm sure that they're wandering
In a
off
workshop,
the
Tanya.
path. Sorry, Anna, did you want to add something?
I think she was talking to somebody on the phone.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
I do want to add something. One thing we talked about too, how like sometimes the two actually kind of go together. Like when you're walking your dog or doing chores, you having a purpose, right? You're like on the more constructive side, but because it's kind of a task that doesn't take all of your attention, then it also opens up the like you can flow to the other side, right? Like while you're walking your dog, you're thinking about a problem or like rolling something around in your head that you need to solve or think about or design or whatever. So that like the two of them are almost like existing at the same time.
Yeah. So I love that you spoke to that because in fact, going for a walk, walking your dog does not need that level of focus. It is actually a wild side activity. So if you said walking the dog, it's not in the place of purpose. That is way more specific. And that's why it's also called the default mode network, because when you go for a walk, you're automatically there. Unless you stop and pull out a pen and paper or on your phone start making notes or something, that's moving then back to the place of purpose. So you absolutely recognized it. And I really like, because what Teresa said just before is that the wild side has a purpose too. It's not that there's nothing there. There's everything is there. There's no constraints there. So this is where it's very interesting working in design to guide people there when you say take away all of the boundaries and allow every possibility. That's going to be the wild side. And now with the conclusions we've come to, what are we going to do with that? That's when you go back to the other side. You don't have to think of it as a river. That's the metaphor that we've taken for it, and the two river banks, to perhaps just make it a little more easily understood. We're here, we're moving now to there and back and forth. But that's, I think everyone has to find an understanding that they feel comfortable with, because then they're comfortable working with it. It doesn't mean it's always going to land with everyone, but it means you're comfortable working with it. If it doesn't feel right to you, it's not the right thing to be using anyway. But I really hope that the concept of it is clear to you, and we've used the metaphor of the river. But you don't have to. That's why we also explored how to get somewhere without a visualization. That wouldn't be using the context of the river. Would anyone else like to add anything? We're almost out of time. So if no one would like to add anything, I am leaving the space open for people to unmute. No?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this session, Tanya and Robin. It was an interesting experience, and it was great being among you all. Hope to see you in future MYFest sessions as well. So yeah. Oh, and this image of the lion feels
Yes. So this
wild
is
and deep too.
and this is the lion with the cobwebs. I love this picture. Okay, I always have to figure out how can I use this picture because it's one of my favorites. And my excuse for using it is, what is something unexpected that has emerged for you from the session? Again, they're only prompts. If there's something you'd like to speak to, we'd love to hear you. What's one concrete step you'd like to try out in your own professional context? You feel I have led you back to the place of purpose. Who might you want to explore one of these crossing practices with? or this concept in general? Who might you like to explore it with? And what unfinished idea or approach from today are you curious to test? Is there anything there that speaks to you? Okay, Ali, it was lovely to see you. You take good care. Hope to see you soon.
See you. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
I would have a question actually.
Yes, Rob.
How present is flow in your daily work life? Because like is the goal to always be in flow?
No. No, you can't always be in flow. I don't think that's a possibility.
Yeah, but okay. But then because yeah, when do you try to reach this state of flow?
Would someone like to answer? Otherwise, I'm happy to jump in. I think flow ensues when you have a goal. Okay, you know where you want to get to, and it's going to require different skills to get you there. And this is by using both of the riverbanks, both of these networks, you're encompassing all of your skills. If you're only using the one riverbank, you're not. And that's not going to be flow. It might be a great exploration session and whatever, but there'll be no output. Right? You might have done lots of work, but that's the sort of thing that can turn into just being busy.
Yeah.
So Yasser, please do join in anytime. Sometimes going in motion does not help much. It contradicts the purpose. So that could be, I don't want to put words in Yasser's mouth. If you'd like to unmute Yasser and just say a couple of words to that.
Sure. So the flow is good because it allows room for creativity, it allows room for more reflection, it gives you a space to be yourself, but sometimes you have to have a plan, and to have a plan is sometimes structured, and the structure doesn't mean that you have a flow. So when we explore the rivers, as I said metaphors because I personally can't see the rivers and the riverbanks. So we have like the exploration of where we are, and we kind of have a plan in mind is to reach a side of that riverbank. So that's why I said going in motion doesn't really help much sometimes.
Thank you. So in the last couple of minutes, would anyone like to speak to any of the points with my beautiful lion, his beautiful wise eyes looking at us?
I think
oh, sorry, Anna, please go ahead.
I think something unexpected that has emerged for me is I'm just you kind of put words to these things, like these states of being or what's going on in our brain, and just thinking about like various times in the day or things that I do like to like now I can put a word on it and recognize it rather than just sort of, like what's just happening to me and I don't actually have a word for it, or even I'm more aware. I don't know if it's making sense.
Thank you. I think it makes perfect sense, Anna. And if I can just add one thing at the end there, it's when you recognize where you are, perhaps that also gives you the opportunity to take a step in the other direction if you feel that that might be something that needs to happen now, to cross the bridge, swim the river. Any other thoughts? Hello. It's lovely to have you back. Mia, yes, hello, hello.
Hi there.
Oh, it's so nice. Haven't seen you for so long. Are we blocking your call? Do you need your call right now?
Well, we continue on for the next session at the hour, but you have 3 minutes, and I'm just happy I was able to catch you on the back end.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the absolute final slide that I have is just simply is there anything you'd like to share with us in general about the session rather than the content of the session? And Yasser has very kindly put the session feedback link already in the chat.
Thank you very much for your insight. It's very nice. And I do like to bring into my students, whom they are freshman students, and this is it's a little bit difficult to guide them in something like this about thinking and all of such a thing. It's a little bit difficult.
Thank you, Shahnaz. And as I said, I'll be sharing the slides. And if there's any questions you ever have, always feel free to reach out as well. I think my email is somewhere.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, then my proposal is Robin and I will now leave the session as the next one is starting. And thank you for your time and thank you for working together with us. And I hope to see you on one of the other sessions soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
today's session.
Thank you, Tanya and Robin.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hello, Miaha.
Hi.
Okay, Noreen, do you know what that is?
Yes, I mean, Mia and Maha, come on. I mean, I already understood it from the very
We
beginning.
have a couple name.
I love that. I love ship names. Yes.
That was a lovely session. I'm sorry that I had to go for the second half. Maha and I had a meeting that was important. So, but I loved the first part. Yeah. Hi, Yasser.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Are we still recording though?
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
are.
We need
Let's turn
to,
that off.
yes.
I could